Hello, I am Mitchell Nip, and these are some electrical safety skills. I will be performing a tug test on these two wires. So we'll start with the red to see if it's secure, and the red wire is pretty secure, and that will be good. Now onto the black. Now that came out, so we would have to recrimp black onto the black wire and then test again to make sure it is good for competition. The most basic electrical safety skill on a robot is to make sure all the wires and connections to them are secure. Secure wires are critical to a robot's success because having secure wires means you know that your robot's parts will not lose power and perform the way you want them to during a competition. The best way to see if a wire is secure is to perform a tug test, which is taking the wire in one hand and the connection in the other, and simply just tugging on it to see if the connection is strong or loose. Having a good connection means it passed the tug test and you can continue. If it is not secure, you would want to recrimp your connection or check to see any other way to fix it, and then try again. If I, an inexperienced electronics member, wanted to wire this wire off to the right hand side, I would simply just put it off to the right and plug it into any power supply. But during competition, if I drove forward, it could get caught in this wheel and then get unplugged or ripped out of the motor, which would be very bad because you would lose a motor during the competition and you'd have to get a replacement or to plug it back in. Now, if I was experienced, I would zip tie it to the frame so it gets out of the way, and it looks a lot nicer than just having wires going all willy-nilly. See, it does not get caught in the wheel, and it never will. Another safety skill is to know how to keep wires out of the way and safe, because if a wire gets caught in any gears or anything, it could get smashed and destroyed, or even pulled out of its connection, therefore reducing your robot's ability to function during a competition. So, what you would want to do is to use your best friend, a zip tie, to keep it out of the way. You can also experiment with different ways of routing the wires until you find the best option that works for you. Back to this connection from the first video. If I were to be wiring the red wire to anything, I wouldn't want there to be a lot of slack because it could get caught in gears or other moving parts, but also wouldn't want it to be too tight because you could rip it apart like that. So you would want a good amount of tension, just enough to get there, but not overly a lot of length of wire. And then if I were to be looping this around anything, I would want to do it about 5 times the diameter of the wire, so about, I don't know, this much. Because if you go any farther, the wire can fold, and then it right here becomes a point of resistance, and that can overheat, catch fire, and overall reduce the effectiveness of anything you have hooked up to the other end. While you do not want your wires to be too loose, you also don't want them to be too tight, because they can also be pulled out of connections inadvertently, even if they pass the tug test. And while routing wires, you want to make sure that you don't have your wire bend radius too small, because then the wire can be split and folded, and many different issues can arise out of a folded wire or torn wire. If you see an exposed piece of wire anywhere and it's attached and it's currently being powered through, I would recommend you to not touch that because you could get shocked. And if you ever see this, you can know that there are a few ways to get around this. The first way to solve this issue is simply to replace the segment of wire depending on how badly damaged with a new segment. The second is to get a piece of shrink wrap and fit it on over the end of the wire, and then put it above the part, and then take your heat gun and then shrink it over. And then the third one, albeit the easiest one, is to just wrap some electrical tape around it Normally you would want to do a bit better of a job than I did just there, but now there is not a problem of you getting shocked. Another hazard are exposed wires. Never touch a live exposed wire. You want to get rid of these issues as soon as you can, and some of the best ways to do it are shrink wrap, replacing the wires, or cover it with electrical tape.